Hello and welcome to History Azerbaijan, Part 5. Last time, Soviet Azerbaijan was almost at the end, and the rise of the Azeri national identity and Armenian territorial gains brought tension between nationalities to a head. First major conflict arose when, after years of activism, the Armenian population in Nagorno-Karabakh, which constituted about 75% of the area, petitioned to be let over to the Armenian SSR, which prompted by a few Azeri extremist nationalists to raid Armenian villages in the area, as well as many of the slums of Sumigui, starting mob violence. The Soviets also shut down the proposal and rejected it, which led to the Armenian SSR trying to change its own, taking Karabakh into their own SSR as Artsakh, and the Soviets sending troops to try to stop the creation of a conflict. Armenia also started to deport and expel a majority of Azeri population in its country, and skirmishes between the two SSR were occurring, and the Russian forces trying to protect the exposed Armenian populations. For the first part of the conflict, the war was undeclared and was slowly escalating with larger and larger skirmishes and more heavy equipment being used. Violence against civilians were common on both sides, with both state and non-state actors. Azerbaijan also managed to cut off most Armenian oil and gas supplies and tried to cut off Nagorno-Karabakh, but was ultimately somewhat unsuccessful, although the control of the drain lines made supplying Artsakh very hard for Armenia. During the first year of the conflict, where less than 100 had been killed, there were over 500,000 people deposed or fleeing from the territory of the other nationality. The food situation was also getting dire because of the war, and it was exacerbated by destruction of infrastructure, relatively low food production even before the war, and the interconnectedness of the states being in the same nation for 70 years. The Soviets then came with 5,000 soldiers and declared that the area should come under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Soviet, while Artsakh asserted its rule as an independent ASSR, while Azerbaijan wanted to end Russian-Soviet interference. Azerbaijan had also in 1989 put into power a government distancing themselves from the Soviet policy and ideals, while still having no plans to leave the Union. But protests were soon held against the Communist Party. An unprecedented border crossing occurred into Iran. This soon culminated into a large riot in Baku for Azeri sovereignty and the right to Karabakh, which led to 60 dead Armenians and Soviets declaring a state of emergency and sending 17,000 troops into Azerbaijan. These soon got into conflict with the protests, resulting in 150 dead. While this led to further disdain and rallies against the Communist Party, it gave the party enough power to stay in control, but eventually Azerbaijan got their own way with Russia and managed to get their independence and renamed themselves to the Republic of Azerbaijan and got full control according to Moscow of Nagorno-Karabakh. A year later, the Soviet Union was dissolved and Azerbaijan got full independence, and after a 2-year power struggle with the presidency consisting of many different people, Haidar Aliyev took power again in 1993 after having re-emerged into politics a few years earlier. After the Soviet collapse, the war with Armenia became a full-scale conflict starting in 1992, and while Azerbaijan initially held the advantage of surrounding Nagorno-Karabakh, Armenia and Artsakh eventually captured the area between, which slowly expanded them into them capturing Azeri-controlled areas of Nagorno-Karabakh. This finally prompted a semi-lasting ceasefire, which the UN and other international groups had tried to organize for years, which saw the de facto independence of Artsakh, but without recognition. After the conflict, Haidar started to purge rivaling government officials to secure his own position and got rid of military police by saying they were plotting a coup. This was quite effective, and the government was soon in full control of Aliyev. He continued his Soviet-era politics of focusing down on oil production and industry, but the development mostly went away to corruption and bribes. His alliance was basically rigged to condemnation of the international community and heavily weakened opposition. His governance continued with even more focus on oil, and when its production declined, instead natural gas of the nation was extracted. But Aliyev fell ill in 2003 and away from public life because of illness and soon died. His son, Ilham, became the next president, with even more outcry from the international community, Azerbaijan has continued as a dictatorship to this day, with large protests and boycotts from the opposition. And that's where we'll leave off for Azerbaijan. And next time we'll see how the history of the Bahamas. Hope to see you then.